So if you've been watching any of these courses that we have at Build with Leaders, there's a chance that you could be saying to yourself, I don't know about what I just heard, or I'd like to elaborate on that a little bit further. And so we decided, well, what better way to do that than to have an open discussion about it with a couple folks from the industry. And this gives us a chance to take some of those marketing and recruiting and video and all those other things that we've discussed in some of these educational sessions and crystallize them a little bit further and drill down so as to make sure that everybody sees their application to this industry, because that's absolutely critical. So where should we get started, Dan?
I think the first question is, you talked about the marketing department yesterday and what size and then what roles and when you should add a videographer, that sort of thing. A lot of the contractors we work with, there is no marketing department. There's a president. There may be somebody that gets it. Randy, he got it at Blount Construction, but didn't have a marketing department. How would you answer that? Because they're going to be sitting there going, wait, you're saying add a videographer to my department when I don't have a department.
It's one of those things where I think if as business owners we understand what's happening out there, it makes it easy to say, holy cow, why don't I have those things? And what I mean by that is if we recognize the influence that marketing has on the sales process and how that's growing more and more every day, and the influence of the sales, let's be honest, sales team on the actual sales process is lowering daily, well, then there's adjustments to be made there. I think there's also a major component of this that we're not necessarily considering if we just look at it in that context, and that is when you look at your marketing department, in many ways in this digital age, that is a major component of your customer service department. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Let's say you have that videographer. Do you think that the videos you produce are only going to be sales-based videos? No, there could be a lot of customer service videos or certain types of videos, customer experience videos, things that we use, that we integrate into the entire life cycle of the customer that makes everything go better. So let me give you an example in the pool world, and then you might give me an example of how this would work in the dirt world, right? So somebody buys a pool. Well, there's a lot for them to learn about that particular, like the equipment and different stuff. You're going through this process right now, getting a pool, right? And so we, in the past, would get all these calls from the homeowners after the fact. Even though we had done great orientations, teaching them how to use their pools, they still had questions because they forget, because they're human. So what did we do? Our marketing department created great videos that showed how you maintain, how you service your pool, how you take care of your pool, all those things. And guess what we're not now getting? Those calls. And if we do get those calls, we can send them to the link or to the video that addresses that issue. That's customer experience. That's CX. Everybody wins when that happens, right? And so the other side to this, and then I'll shut up, is that just because most in this industry don't have a marketing department is the case, doesn't mean that's the way it should be. That, what you described, is the case for the majority of companies that are in construction, that are in home improvement, that are in these types of, you might want to call it blue-collar industries. Many of them don't have a marketing department. But there is a huge transition that's happening. And Randy, as you've found yourself, it's like when you try to wear that hat as a business owner, you can't do all those other things as well. It's naive to think that we can be great on that side and still sustain the other areas of the business. Digital, marketing, media, all these things are happening, and that falls under that marketing department.
Yeah. I mean, I think even hearing all that, I'm just trying to put myself like, hey, I'm putting my contractor hat on. I'm trying to think like, what would the response be to that, and where would the concern be? And I think a lot of times they'd say, well, I barely make any money, so how can I afford to do this? And
Which
I'm
is
like, where do I start?
Why are we not making money?
Yeah.
Right? Why are we not making money? Which comes first, chicken or the egg? Are we not making money because we don't have enough sales, or is it because the sales we're making have too low of margins? Right? That oftentimes is an issue.
Yep.
Or do we have some type of problems in the field where we have a lot of waste? I mean, there's a million different things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest problems too is the industry is fat and happy right now.
Yeah.
We are in a prosperous period, and that's how the pride cycle works. There's a thing called the pride cycle. It happens in industries. Check this out. In 2007, if you could breathe, you could get a loan for a pool. You think it was hard to sell pools? Everybody was filling up their schedules. You could just go into somebody's home, and if you were good enough, you could convince them to get a pool, and you could get them a loan. You get a pulse, you got a loan. Right? Yeah. That was the bubble.
Yep.
And then, oh, by the way, what were all the pool companies doing at the time?
Charging a lot.
At the end of the year, counting their cash, going on cruises. The vendors were taking everybody on these cruises, and it's just one big party. I can recall going to one of our vendor partners and saying, I got an idea. Instead of going on this cruise where all everybody does is drink the whole time, why don't we get together as all of us dealers and have this incredible educational experience so that we really learn to improve our businesses? And this manufacturer looks at me, the CEO of the company, he's like, you think pool guys want to spend their time learning when they can spend their time drinking? I'm like, yeah, I think there's a bunch of us. He laughed at me. Laughed at me. And of course, what happened in 2008, 2009 when everything hit the fan? Now, all of a sudden, all the pool companies started thinking about things called marketing and digital. And, maybe I should have a marketing person. Your department might start off as one, then it might be two, then it might be three, but you got to start somewhere. But to think for a second that we can be in this digital information age and not be doing what we need to do. I mean, I hear you painted your stuff different colors. Why? You stood out. You were different. That was incredible branding, incredible marketing, made a massive difference, right? That's outside the box. That's not waiting on the supplier, on the vendor, on whoever to say, these are the rules by which I'm going to grow my business. We got into business and we became entrepreneurs because we like to control our future. And too often we get in this position and many of us are no longer in control. We're either our vendor partners are in control of our future or the economy is in control of our future, but we're not in control. I just don't think that's a smart business model.
Yeah. I agree, and I think that's why a lot of the times when we were marketing, we try to market ourselves as a service provider instead of a contractor, like solution provider.
Yeah.
Because you want to try to separate yourself, right?
Decommoditizing really
correct.
What you do. Yes.
Correct, because so much of what contracting is, I'd say still probably the majority is low price, low bid for public and entities. So, I mean, that might also be kind of a question that some of these contractors have is like, okay, 80% of my business, 90% of my business, I'm bidding to agencies. So how does marketing, how does it help me? Because I'm still going to have to bid in this low bid market. So what's the benefit?
So the question is, how do you get the bids?
Like, how do you?
Is there a contractor out there that wants more bids?
Sorry, like the opportunities to bid jobs?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Probably so.
Of course, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you don't come out the womb getting all the opportunities, able to give whatever, because lots of times it's math. If I give this many bids this year, I should be able to ultimately cover my nut, right?
Yeah.
In this case, there's many people that are saying, yeah, sure, I'd love to have the opportunity for more bidding, more potential customers. Well, what allows that to happen? And it's not just waiting around. It is being proactive and making sure that when there is an opportunity, that we are one of the ones on the list. So that's my first answer to your question. Same time, I can ask this to you now because when we were recording this different sessions on this very subject, I wasn't able to talk to you about it. If you have a choice, do you want to be first that's contacted as a contractor?
Yes.
Why?
Usually if you're first, you're going to have more time to understand the project. You're going to understand it better, which gives you strategic advantage.
Every contractor worth their salt wants to be first.
Yeah.
Those that say, no, I want to be last, you're like, yeah, sometimes you don't realize it, but you were last on the list, but they never got to you for whatever reason. That's happened before. Somebody told you, yeah, we're planning on contacting, this, and that company. They ended up not making all the way down the list because they made a decision before that.
Yeah.
It happens in business. Even in RFP, bid-based situations, it happens. Anybody will say, I want to be first. How do you always become first? You do what we've been talking about. It's the brand, it's the marketing, it's the making sure that you are at the forefront of every dang conversation that's happening in the industry.
Yeah.
And there's different ways to do that. But when we talked about trust and thought leadership, there it is. Now, if I said to you, again, because we have this chance, if I said to you, does trust matter in your success? What would you say?
Yes.
Why?
Well, I mean, just on the hard bid side of things, which I think is probably the example that they're going to say, they're going to use as the pushback most often.
Yeah.
I'd say, if you take a project, even though you were low bid, and the state agency or federal agency or whatever that is, goes, these are good contractors. I've seen what they do. I've seen their videos, whatever it is. The relationship that you have from the start is significantly different than if they go, oh, these guys are the low ball.
That's it.
Tough to work with. They're doing everything they can to make a dime. Like, the job's just going to run differently because of perception. Whether or not it's accurate, we're not going to debate that. It's just the perception changes it, right?
100%. And everything we've talked about is our caveat to trust. This is why when anybody says, it just comes down to the bid, to the lowest bid. I'm like, okay, so you're saying you don't care if you're first. No, I care if I'm first. But you said it was just about the bid. Well, so you're saying it doesn't matter about trust. Well, I guess it does matter a little bit. It's like, it's amazing how we can become so focused on everything is just about lowest bid. And this happens in lots of industries. It's not unique to heavy civil. This isn't the only one. Let's be honest. There's industries all over the world that are very RFP bid based. And it's always the same conversation. And oh, by the way, even when it comes to business to government, B2G, the way they're finding contractors has changed. I've literally talked to government officials that when they're getting contractors for projects, they actually use this thing called the internet.
Yeah.
It's true. They know that the internet exists and they use it.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, Randy, but I've also, so I talk to contractors every week that call us about our marketing services, and they start with that, okay, it's a hard bid, I'm not sure how this matters, but as I get into the conversations and as we find out more about their business, they want to do more negotiated work. Like it's a growing part of the business, it's higher margin, they want to get more into it, but they are not sure that marketing, has an impact there. Or even the hard bid stuff, like they need people. It's like I could go do $10 million more worth of work if I could find the people. I can't find the people, but I'm not sure if marketing has a role here. Like, talk to me. And I'm like,
and that's why we talked yesterday about how your marketing department, you play it right, that is your recruiting department.
Right.
That is the catalyst for the awareness in the marketplace, getting people to be attracted to work for you. And so That's why somebody says, I don't need leads. Really? So if you don't need leads, that means you do need leads. It just so happens the leads you need are the type that work for you. Oh yeah, well I guess I do need those. Because you either have one problem or the other, right? If you don't have enough leads, well then you don't need to hire people.
Right.
But if you have too many leads, that means you need to hire people. That's how it works. That's the seesaw.
Yeah.
Either way you play it, which department is going to be the catalyst?
Okay.
We call that marketing. You can call that your media department. I don't give a rip what you call it. The name's overrated. What they do, though, is they're the one that promotes the awareness, the trust, the thought leadership in the marketplace, teaches the marketplace, so that you have a constant funnel of leads for your sales department, but also leads in terms of your actual employee base. No, by the way, we do need to mention, because you mentioned this to me, everybody has a sales department. They might not call it sales department, right?
Correct.
But if you transact dinero, you have a sales department.
Dinero is money in Spanish, right?
In most cases, right? Fiat, Bitcoin, whatever you want to trade, you got a sales department.
That's true.
Yeah. It might be called estimating, business development, but
we like to use
contract-
lax terms for what it actually is.
Right.
It's actually a bit ridiculous. We're selling stuff.
It's interesting because like you'll hear them say, "I'm not sure if marketing matters," but I was just on a call last week and I was talking to one of my counterparts and I was talking to him about, hey, your proposal, it can't just be a piece of paper with a dollar amount on it. Like you need to differentiate yourself from the competitors. You need to show what you plan to do, when you plan to do it, how you plan to do it. And I was like, if you just do that, there will be a callback. You could be
Correct.
you could be the high guy, but they're like, hey, this guy knows what's going on with the project,
And just
he's
like
gonna call
to your
back.
point, like how you're going to do it. What if, as part of your proposal, you have a series of videos that explains those key differentiators, and you're openly saying, listen, nobody's going to do it this way.
Yeah.
Yes, we're going to propose you something that is 20% more, but let's look at the long-term impact this is going to have and why we're suggesting that you do it this way. And they physically see it. Like, oh, now that makes sense.
Yeah. When you were talking about that video yesterday, you were recording it, I was in the room, and the first thing that came to my mind is, I don't know how you do videos for construction. And then as I thought on it just a little bit more, I was like, we have an earth retention business. We dig basements like city blocks and we shore them. Well, there's not many people that understand shoring. Like on a regular basis, our sales team is sending over sketches and talking on the phone, like trying to explain it. I'm like, man, if we just had 4 or 5 videos that show the different shoring systems that we do, that could just be sent with every proposal. Like,
Yep.
Hey, we're going to be doing a soil nail shoring system on this project. By the way, here's the link that shows what that is so you can understand the process.
Which is why one of the questions I like to ask, to your point here, Randy, is I like to ask contractors like yourself, does everybody do what you do the exact same way you do it in your industry?
No.
And I don't know a single soul that's going to say, oh yeah, we all do it exactly the same.
Okay.
So are there variations of the quality of work in this space?
I would say yes.
Of course.
absolutely.
Are there variations of the methodologies and the technologies that get you there? Of course there are. And so whenever there's a story, and that's the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's no different than it used to be that fiberglass pools were built on sand. Okay? So when we started 20 years ago, our swimming pool company, you'd dig a hole, you would set it on sand, you'd backfill around the pool with sand, and so therefore your concrete collar was getting poured on top of sand. So even though you might have gravel underneath your concrete decking, there's still that overdig that you excavated, that's still going on sand. Now, I don't know if that don't sound odd to a few of you, but hello, we don't put driveways on sand, roads on sand, building on sand. For the love of Pete, the Bible teaches us that you don't build houses on sand. And that's old, right? And they figured it out back then. And so we started teaching the importance of building pools on gravel. And so when we started this business, 90% of fiberglass pools were built on sand. But because we taught it so much about the importance of building on gravel, backfilling with gravel, and how you would never want to build really almost anything on sand if you know structurally, if you have a brain. Well, once we started teaching that, I started having pool builders around the country saying, Marcus, you're screwing me up, man. Homeowner here now wants to have it on gravel, and that's going to cost me $750 more per pool. It caused me to raise my prices. I'm like, no, I'm not. It's called common sense, bro. I'm not your problem. Your problem is this thing called science, and you're fighting against it. Today, 90% of all fiberglass pools are built on gravel because we talked about it. The industry, I'm assuming, is rife with that. There's so many things that used to be done a certain way that are now potentially being done a different way, a better way. There's contractors that are not doing things the way they should be done. There's shortcuts that are sometimes being made. And if we don't talk about these things and show these things, once again, as we discuss so heavily, that work we do, this multi-million-dollar work we do becomes commoditized. Oh, that's just moving dirt, just moving stuff. It's way more than that.
Yeah.
Short and long term, it's way more than that.
Like when I hear stuff like that, it makes me think of like the extreme ownership principles that we're going to share as well and talk about. And so you think and you hear this, and what I think is, I don't know how many times I've been in a meeting with somebody else or been talking with somebody in the industry, and we say something like, I'm tired of bidding against these guys who don't do good work. Right? And like you make it their fault.
Right.
Yes.
But the reality is, as I hear this and I think of extreme ownership, I'm like, no, this is my fault because I haven't told anybody my story, our story,
So
why we're better, right?
So good.
And if I did that, then those the guys who aren't doing good quality work, they just wouldn't exist because the customers they'd be asking those questions like, well, are you over excavating the pad? No, I don't have that in my bid. Okay, well then, I'm not using you. Or
Right.
we only use 4,000 PSI concrete for foundations because of this. What PSI concrete are you using? Oh, we're only going to use 2,500 PSI. Well, I want 4,000. Like it.
All of a sudden, different game.
All of a sudden, different
Yeah,
game.
they don't say that. They go on a website and they just say quality.
Correct.
Like we do quality work or
Yeah.
integrity
Yeah.
or we're or value engineering. I hear that all the
Yeah.
time. Where hey, why do people buy from you? Value engineering. I'm able to save them money that they never even knew, but it's nowhere in their marketing and it's not proven.
This
And
is why we teach companies leads that you get, prospects. They're as good or as bad as the communication that brought them there, the messaging that brought them there, right? If somebody says, sometimes companies say, yeah, the internet leads we get stink. I'm like, oh, no, your website stinks. So does your messaging. Because your peer there says their best leads come from the web. So what's the difference between each? They're in the same industry. The only difference is they are way more clear with the marketplace. If I talk to manufacturers all the time. They say to me, China's killing us. Really? China's killing you? Yeah. So are they building it better than you? No, they ain't building it better than us. So have you bothered to really explain and show how you're building it, manufacturing it, compared to the way they're doing it and why you're superior? Well no, but you can't complain. You haven't earned the right to complain, to your point on extreme ownership.
Yeah.
You've lost the right now to complain because we haven't proactively done anything about it as a business. And we could have done something about it, but we elected not to. We just assume that people come out of the womb and they know these things. That everybody is an expert like we are, that they know 4,000 PSI versus 2,500 PSI, and they would naturally ask the difference. Yeah. No, they won't.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Like it's been quite eye-opening. I mean, I said this in a different segment, but I feel like I've been successful. But the thoughts I just keep having here is like, man, like why didn't I think of this? And this is like another one of those. I'm thinking to myself, how many times have I thought? Because this is true in construction, they don't even know their costs, right? Like that company doesn't even know their costs because I know costs and they're doing it for less than costs.
Yep.
And then they go out of business. And I could be so much more proactive and I could be telling the story of this is how we determine our costs.
That's right.
This is what our cost is. You cannot move a yard of dirt for less than this. It can't be done.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden some customer gets a bid and it's less. Instead of complaining about how the customer is driving down unit prices,
Right.
I educated the customer so they didn't even buy from them.
Right.
Like, it's like,
Earn trust in the meantime.
Right.
Yeah.
dang it.
100%.
It was my fault.
And you turn at what is a perceived disadvantage, right?
Yeah.
And that's yes and, right?
Yep.
Taking that perceived disadvantage of we're more expensive, they've got this like loss leader business model that is going to cause them to, in this case, lose their business. Instead of that, we're going to take the fact that we understand costs. We're going to teach how we understand costs and why it sustains us as a long-term business and why that's a better play for the customer.
Yeah.
Now, that's a different game.
Yeah. Like, for sure. I like 2010, I watched all of my competitors go away, right? And I'm fixing their problems. Why? Because I knew my costs. But guess what? Come 2014 or 15, I hadn't demonstrated that well to our clients and new people who were those companies that went out of business, start new businesses.
Yeah.
And they start coming back in. Margins are bigger now. And so them not knowing their costs isn't as big of a deal. They can operate in this, like you said, this pride cycle. They're up here.
Yep.
Hey, I'll just throw enough money at it. I'll win enough work. So now I'm competing against these people who I think don't understand their costs, and I just complain about it, and I shouldn't be. And I should have, there's so many cool stories. We fixed a parking lot that somebody else installed wrong. We came back and we fixed it, and it was for a school. We fixed it at cost to just try and help out our client who was in a bad spot. We haven't told that story. Nobody knows it.
And that is an amazing story.
Yeah.
And that's why you need a marketing department to shoot that video and to have that, as we discussed in our video course, customer journey video, that hero video, the problem they had when everything went wrong, the journey they went on with you to solve the problem where they are today because of it. Look at all those happy kids, right?
Yeah.
It's like, that's the story, that's powerful. And anybody who watches that is going to say, oh, I don't want that to happen to us. I don't want to make that same mistake.
Yeah.
But you're right. And all these promptings you're getting, these impressions that you're having, Randy, they're dead on. And the fact is, when somebody watches anything like this, you're going to get impressions. And the ones that get the most out of this are the ones that don't just get them, they do something about them. You write it down in that moment, and then you start to take action. That's our goal. That's why we're producing this series, because we want business leaders to take that action.
All right, quick devil's advocate, because I hear this all the time too. All right, the other problem with marketing is this is part of my value proposition. I do things differently, and I don't want people to find out. I don't want my competitors to find out. I don't want to showcase, I don't want to tell my employees stories, how you talked about yesterday in video, because I don't want anybody stealing my employees, and they'll leave for a quarter raise. So I can't put them on the website. I can't really showcase our expertise on the website. So I just make generic statements that nobody can really figure out. So talk to me. Are people losing their people? That sort of thing. I have to answer those questions every week.
This is such a critical subject here. And if you think about it, it creates a vicious cycle. We're afraid to show our people because we think headhunters will come and snatch them up, which, by the way, is possible.
Right.
And it's also possible they snatch them up anyway. With that being said, because we're afraid to do that, we never really market our business the way that we should to the potential, employee base that is out there. And that means we get less and less candidates.
Right.
So because we're coming from a place of scarcity, we get scarce results. Whereas if you come from a place of, here's our team loves us, we love them, we even tell people if they've got a better opportunity to take it. Now all of a sudden it's like, wow, it's different. Because everybody's experience, if you are doing, especially like you take all the things that we've been talking about, take this leadership communication that we've been talking about, if you're applying those things, and if you created the right culture, if somebody leaves you, they left you. They would probably left you anyway. But I can tell you as a business leader, you will never do anything exceptional if you're coming from a place of scarcity. It doesn't happen. You're not going to attract the best in the world by doing that. Unless we're willing to show their stories, we're not going to create something, this momentum. We need to create momentum in the industry. We have a problem. We keep saying, why is it difficult to find people, to get recruits, to get people in the industry as a whole? But yet we show no stories of the people in the industry because we're all living in a place of scarcity. That's the vicious cycle.
Right.
Yeah. Like there's two thoughts. One I had was like fear versus love. Are you coming from a place of fear or love?
Yep.
And I know as a contractor, it probably sounds, you don't hear contractors.
Well,
talk
people
like
need
that
to get
very
over
often.
themselves if they feel like that,
very
right?
often,
Because that's
right.
the truth. It
Yeah.
is what it is. High caring, high love versus fear, scarcity.
Yeah. So the fear is not going to motivate a result that you want. Like
Right.
you need to be coming from a place of love. I love my people. I want the best for them. But even on the process side of things, Jim Collins, he talks about hedgehog concept, right? The idea is it has to be something you're passionate about, you love, and that you can best in the world at. Like there's not anything that we do in construction. I shouldn't say anything. There's very few things in construction that have a patent. That there's a process. Like they're going to find it out. We designed a shoring system that we thought was super efficient, and we tried to keep a wraps on it. Guess what? They all knew it. It took a few months, and people had the plan sets. They figured it. Like it's just going to happen.
Okay, so to your point about this, right? There's the secret sauce that's our employees, and then there's a secret sauce that's our methodologies, right?
Yeah.
This is the one that really drives me crazy too, because it exists in every industry.
Right.
I remember the first time when I was, I said to myself, none of these fiberglass pool manufacturers show how they make their pools. That's dumb. So before I was a manufacturer, I was a dealer. Went to one of these manufacturers because we had one of these like dealer meetings there, and I went to the show, the floor of the plant, and I started recording what I was seeing, and I was making a video. And the owner of the company lost his ever-loving mind. He's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm like, what's the problem? He's like, we've got proprietary technology. I'm like, no, you don't. I see that same dumb crane over top of all these men. Look, man, you're the fourth manufacturer facility I have seen. What I'm seeing here is not special, which brings us to the point. Many companies say they have a secret sauce when all they got is Thousand Island and everybody knows it. And you see this in industries all over the stinking world. So listen, you're not Coca-Cola. You're not Colonel Sanders. What you're doing could easily have been carried over from the employee that left you and is now working for your competitor anyway.
Exactly.
So when you, again, comes from a place of scarcity like that. We created a series of videos of how to manufacture your fiberglass pool. 80 minutes long, this series of videos. 80 minutes. We're literally teaching you, essentially, this is how, if you wanted to start a manufacturing business for fiberglass pool, this is how you would do it. Manufacturers call me up and like, Marcus, why are you showing this stuff? I'm thinking, you ding-dongs, why am I showing it? Because they want to see it. And so now, here's what happened as a result. You have all these homeowners that are going to pool builders around the country saying, do you carry river pool? And they're like, no. Well, I don't want it. I don't want anything unless it's a river pool. Why do you want a river pool? They're the only ones that show me how they build their pools. They showed me the whole process. So that's the way it goes. Now, I don't know if they actually sound like that, but that's the way that it goes. I've had multiple dealers come to us over the years and say, the only reason why I'm here is because I'm tired of the homeowner asking for you guys because of the fact that you show everything on your website. That's power. And we don't do anything any differently than anybody else. But showing what you do, even though everybody else does it, makes it appear very, very unique and distinctive.
Yeah. And I think when I think of this, I'm like, well, it doesn't apply to construction as much because, like, that's my first thought. Like, and I think that's probably where a lot of construction people will come from when they hear this. But like, how many, if you're a subcontractor in the dirt world and you work for a general contractor, how many project engineers and project managers and superintendents know how to set a catch basin? They know how to lay sewer. It's like, if they see that and they're like, these guys know how to do it, and I have no experience with anybody else. Like, I like the light bulb's kind of like, yeah, this does work. I mean, is it daunting? Yeah. Will it take time? Yeah. But I'm like, it would work.
Right.
And furthermore, is any of this stuff we're talking about going to go away?
No.
Is it going to become less relevant? Is suddenly, like, the internet not going to be here tomorrow and people are off their phones and they say, you know what, I'm just done researching stuff before I buy it. I'm just going to wing every buying decision from now until the end of time.
Yeah.
Like, none of this stuff is going to change in that opposite direction. We're not going back to the Stone Ages. I'm sure a lot of people would love it if we were still selling and buying and doing all the stuff like we were doing 50 years ago. And I'm not saying that was good or bad, but we're in a different place. And when you own a business and you're a leader, you signed up to listen to the marketplace and get over your own opinions. And too often, as business leaders, we allow our personal opinions to screw up some really smart business decisions. It doesn't really matter if I like video or if I'm good on camera. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I watch videos. It doesn't matter if I even know what YouTube is. The only thing that matters is, what does the marketplace want? The marketplace has been clear about this. They want to see it. They want to see it because seeing is believing. And if they see it, trusted enough to say, okay, I want to move forward with that thing. That's just one example. But we have to be so careful about not injecting personal opinions into what is clear trends in the world that we're all frankly a part of.
But the thing that's so interesting about that is we're aware of the trend, we just don't know it. For example, you probably hear this all the time, I hear it all the time, Aaron probably hears it all the time. This young group of project engineers, whatever, they don't understand the work, right? Like, duh, because we don't tell them. Like they don't understand it because none of us tell them how to do the work. They come out of school and they start as a project engineer, and none of us have decided we're gonna have these videos that shows people how to do the work. Like, we can fix the issue that we have with inexperience simply by showing what we do.
Or the country doesn't understand pipelines, or they don't get the mining industry. Yeah, we're doing nothing to show what we're doing. And
quite the opposite. Like, oh, you're doing a pipeline? No way. Do not record anything. Like, you work in a mine? We can't show that, even though everything we have comes from the mine.
It's like those people that have no idea that milk comes from a cow.
Yeah.
Right.
They think milk comes from the grocery store. That it's just some liquid that we make that doesn't come from something else. We have the same problem. We turn on the lights, we don't connect it to the original source. Because we don't connect it to the original source, we have a different relationship with mining as a society. These are problems because we don't tell.
Right.
We don't show the story.
Yeah, or that every time we pull out our smartphone that we love, nobody thinks of all the mining that had to happen to facilitate the glass, the microchips, the 100%. Wiring. I mean, without mining, we don't have smart devices, which everybody loves, right?
Yeah, but mining, so
evil,
bad, right? And so that's when suddenly people have to make, or at least experience realizations and maybe shifts, and also the perception of entire industries can start to change there.
And that actually maybe is a good point. I've been kind of having this this thought, and maybe you could speak to this, but we've kind of talked about the hero story. You kind of brought it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Like the guy or a girl who works in construction, the blue collar, runs an excavator, lays pipe. Like, in your mind, how could the industry help better tell that story? Because I think they are unsung heroes. And so that's the question one, how could they do it? Question two, what effect would that have on the industry, do you think, if we got good at doing that?
Oh my goodness, it's like there's so much to this. I'm a big LinkedIn guy.
Yep.
I love LinkedIn. 1% of what you see on LinkedIn is like blue collar stuff. What a tragedy, right? And I think that 1%, that's probably Aaron and his team. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's pretty screwed up. We have to do better at showing these stories. And the thing about it is, we need to normalize folks saying college isn't necessarily my thing because I'm passionate about this. And these younger generations, they have to see themselves in these individuals. If they can't see themselves, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't compute, right? And so you show that story of that lady that's in construction and how she got there and why she loves dirt and why she loves putting on the hard hat and what she loves about getting up each morning and getting on that heavy equipment and what she loves about her job. And there are females around the world that would say, I'm feeling something right now that feels weird because I've always kind of felt that, but I never wanted to tell anybody that's the way I felt. You know what I'm saying, right? That's what's possible. That's how we can shift things from where they are. And what's really sad is that, as I mentioned before, it's like the only person that's been doing this is Mike Rowe. And we got to create 100,000 Mike Rows out there that might not have his platform, but are willing to show the stories that of all the stuff that makes America in the world, but makes America so freaking awesome, makes it turn. The stuff that's keeping the lights on, right? That's why we're able to drive on the highways. All that stuff, those stories aren't being told. And I think but when we don't have marketing departments and we don't have anybody carrying a video camera in the company, and we're selling it the way that daddy did it and daddy's daddy did it, and we're stuck and we push back on change, well, that's how industries die.
One other thing is that, leader of a company looking at, should I invest in marketing? The ones that reach out to us, they want to either win work, they want to hire people. We talk a little bit about changing the industry perception, but there's a big reason that people ask me, like at the end of the conversation, well, by the way, could I use this internally in the company to help with culture and things like that if we did this? And I tell them absolutely, that actually, the work that we do, we wind up about half of our time gets spent internally versus externally. So and you both get that. I'd love for you both to talk about that. Like how would you use marketing, if you had a marketing department, how would you use it internally to affect culture, employee engagement, retention, onboarding, training? How can we use all these tools to improve the company?
I think there's probably a lot of ways. I'm just speaking of my experience having a marketing department and BuildWit both working and helping us. Like one thing we're doing right now is we're working on telling the story of everybody in our company that's been there for over 3 years. Having their picture on our website. There's something cool about being a blue collar worker and be able to tell your kids, look, here I am, I'm on the internet, and my company values me enough that they have me there. That also just creates this people see there's something different about this company. There's culturally something different, and they want to show up. We painted our equipment gray years ago, and it's insane. It's a simple thing from a marketing standpoint. Costly maybe, but simple. I cannot tell you how many people message me on Instagram or LinkedIn that want a job, or how many people in an interview we say, how did you hear about us? I saw the gray equipment.
Gray equipment.
And it was just, hey, we want to create a brand. And for me, I said, I think painting our equipment's a simple way to create the brand, and it's worked. A lot of people think we're crazy, but I get plenty of recruits who come just because the equipment's great. And I would say, how much would it cost you to get those recruits to come to you? Like we don't have to do anything. The marketing does it for us. We're not using a headhunter. They show up. So I think definitely it does. And in our other segment we were recording, we were talking about just communication, and I think that's the root of everything. Marketing really is communication, right? It's telling the story, and so it's hard to do that as a business owner. And if the marketing department, or whatever you want to call it, can help you tell the story of what you're doing, it's important. Like, we do a pair of boots. Once a year, we buy a pair of Red Wing boots for our employees, okay? But if you don't know that, like, you don't have anything to look forward to, but if your marketing department said, hey, you get onboarded and you say, by the way, when you hit your 6-month anniversary, you get a pair of boots, whatever, or you had a story on your website, a video, somebody talking about how they love to get their new pair of boots every year. Like, recruits are gonna see that and say, like, these guys buy a pair of boots for me? Like,
Right.
I've never worked at a company that buys a pair of boots.
They care about me.
Yeah. And it wouldn't cost, like,
It's awesome.
to, like he said, like, to have, I mean, it could be a video from a smartphone,
Right.
probably,
Yeah,
right? Just to have a video on your Instagram page that said, the story was whoever, Don, talking about how he loves his boots that he gets every year.
Right.
And that people seeing that, like, dang, these guys care, right? The story's being told. That's some thoughts.
Yeah, I think Randy really killed it there. I mean, it was great thoughts. I think ultimately everybody wants to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And they want to feel like they're a part of a family and a part of a movement. Marketing is the one that's going to crystallize all those things, right? And if you're able to say, this is me, I'm a part of this, and here's my video, here's my thing, here's what I do, here's my story, hey, everybody look, that's a sense of pride, right? And one thing too is the more, what you found, because one thing that we teach so much is your subject matter experts, you have them. They're on your team right now. They're the engineers, they're the people in the field, they're the sales reps, all those folks. Those are your subject matter experts. You get them on camera, you talk to them, and you let them tell and show their story. And when they do that, the more they do that, the more they feel a sense of ownership for the brand. It's like, why does somebody become obsessed with Apple? Which, by the way, I actually don't know why they do, but people do. People do. And then they have all the, it's like everything they do is Apple, this and that. How does that happen? They feel like they're part of something bigger.
Right.
And that story, that happens all over the world. But is it occurring in your company right now? Do the folks in your company feel like they're a part of something bigger, and that if somebody wanted from the public eye to see that they were a part of it, would they be able to see that and find that and see you in there and say, wow, look at you, wow, impressive, you guys are a big deal. Everybody wants that.
Right.
I want that, right? We all want that. Inherently, this is what we want. We don't want to be hobbits in a cave. I mean, sure, there's a few people but as a whole, that's not what we want to be, right? We want our story to be told, and we want to be a part of that. We might not need the limelight, but we want to feel like, man, I'm behind this thing. This is why I go to work every day.
And I think that this story is just so easy to tell. Like, in that what we do is so, this movement, it's so big. Like, you drive to work on it. You turn the water on. You never think about, is my water going to turn on?
Right.
Or is the power going to turn on?
Yeah.
Or is Wi-Fi going to work? Like, this industry is amazing, but we haven't been telling our story for so long that we're losing to tech, right? And on that podcast with Aaron, we talked about all the time, people say the millennials, they don't want to work hard. Like, I think we have to just recognize that we stopped telling our story,
right,
and we lost the marketing battle to Google and to Apple and to whatever tech companies out there. They've won, because guess what? They've been telling their story, and it's cool, and we're not. And, like, let's just own up to that.
Right.
Let's be cool. Let's start telling our story. Because what we get to do is fun. Like every day I can go back and say, I helped build that. I helped build that school.
Right.
I helped build that stadium, whatever, right? Like there is something tangible and special about what we do. We just have to tell the story. So I think it's important for a company, but I think as an industry, we have to be good as well. Like there needs to be, like the people who are watching this, it can't just be like one or two that go tell their story. Like we need to have hundreds of people across America telling their story, because this is a vital service that needs to be done, and it is cool.
Right.
We just haven't been telling the story.
Yeah, it's good points, man.
All right, I'm going to keep bringing up some issues that, stuff that I hear. It's like, okay, I get it. I want to have 100. I want everybody on my team helping me market, tell this story. But they're operating heavy equipment. I don't want them to have a smartphone. Like, how does that work? I'm worried about safety. We work for power companies that we can't show some stuff. So how do you have that trust to have 100 storytellers on your team? I mean, how does that work? Because a lot of the companies are very risk averse. It's like, hey, I could wind up losing this job or losing this long-term customer if somebody posts the wrong thing. So I'd rather just do away with it. Let's just stay in our bubble and not take on any risk.
Right. Obviously, we've been talking about this whole risk adverse scarcity mentality throughout this conversation. The thing about it is, I'm not suggesting here that you necessarily tell your entire team, just, start recording videos wherever you are, whatever you do. It's like, this is why, once again, and yes, we'll beat this in the ground, why you have some semblance of a marketing department. You get that content person, you get that videographer, and they're the ones that are creating the stories and facilitating it. They just need subject matter experts. That's all they need. That's your people that you already have. So you have all these beautiful stories, but it's not their job to state and tell the story. That's not what they're trained to do. What they're good at is what they do every day. So let them do that. Get the people, that in-house journalist, right, to be able to meet them on the job site and have them teach them what they're doing and show the thing. Now, that's how you do it, and you do it at scale. And you do it safely, right? And you do it intelligently. You do it with a plan.
I mean, it's hard. Like, I get it. I mean, we had a video of somebody, one of our operators one time. He was in a skid steer, and he drove forward quickly and then went backwards, right? So the back of it's up off the ground. And like, you're like, oh crap, like that's
right.
Forever on social media. Like, but at the same time, it's like, what do you do about it? Like you could tell everybody don't use their phones, but it's still gonna happen.
Right.
So you might as well have way more good content than bad to outweigh it. Like create guidelines and communicate them and help people understand why. Right. But the reality is everybody has a camera. It's in their pocket. Somebody's gonna take a video you don't want them to take. Right. So you might as well have enough good content to bury the bad.
We did this, again, we've done this at River Pools. We've shown the story in just like in any construction type of space, you get those that are critical, but this is how we became the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world, the most known fiberglass swimming pool brand in the country. This is how we revolutionized the industry. You don't create amazing experiences and change by sitting there and saying, I just don't think we can do that. That's easy.
Right.
That doesn't require any skill. And it should never, by the way, be celebrated. Which is why, we talked about this yesterday. There's two types of attorneys that these companies have. First type of attorney is the one that feels like it's their job to always say no. No, you can't do that. Well, why are you paying them? Pay me. I'll tell you no for half their cost. I'll tell you no. Or get an attorney who actually says, you know what? Here's how we're going to say yes. Here's how we're going to allow this to happen, but here's what you're going to have to do. Now they're earning their dang money. There's always a way. You can't, just like when it comes to they ask you answer, you can't always give the exact answer. But can you address the question? Of course you can. No question about it, you can. But if you don't do this, you're not allowed to complain. You're not allowed to complain if there's not enough recruits. You're not allowed to complain if if everything's been commoditized. You're not allowed to complain.
Can't blame millennials.
And eventually millennials are going to be old farts.
Yeah.
And who are you going to blame then?
The irony there, I've said this, I'm 36, so I'm technically a millennial, just barely.
Yeah.
And
barely made the cut.
And then, but my peers, most of them, when I was a president, and I'm currently an executive as well, but most of the presidents in the different groups I were in were 55 to 65. And this is the thought that came to me in one meeting, and I actually verbalized it. I probably shouldn't have. I was being radically candid.
Hey, word. Well done.
This is what they said. They were just complaining about them. There's like all these millennials. And I just said, the thought just occurred to me. Everyone here at this table raised the millennials. So who's really the
That's
issue?
right.
And so we just need to take the extreme ownership and realize it's not a millennial issue. It's not. It has nothing. If it was, then every generation would blame the next generation. Like you could go back every generation. I like to read history. Every generation does this. They complain about the upcoming generation. That's not the issue.
Plus, there's no net gain in it.
Yeah.
Okay, so who cares?
Yeah.
What are we going to actually do about it?
Correct.
And I think that's why we've been having this conversation. We talked about action items, things that we can do, start doing, and the fact is, most companies that hear this are not going to do anything with it. That's a sad reality. But there's a few people that are listening to this, that are watching this, that are going to say, you know what, we're going to be that outlier. We're going to be that company that does this. We are going to become the catalyst of change within our space. That company's going to change the world, at least this world, dirt world, as we know it.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
It is.
It's a blue ocean of opportunity, and I'm really hoping some of these viewers take it and run with it.